Awesome. And we will be doing the Q&A via Slido. So the QR code is on the screen, and I will also put the link to Slido in the chat as well in just a minute. So please drop your questions in the Slido throughout the presentation, and we will do the Q&A after all three presenters have had the opportunity to speak. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Eric to do speakers' introductions.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to first introduce Dr. Lori Brotto, who's the president and founder of eSense. Dr. Lori Brotto is internationally recognized as a leader in sexual health research and increasingly in menopause. She has mentored 200 trainees and evaluated psychological interventions for sexual dysfunction and genital pain, which collectively impacts 1/3 of women. Her work influences practice internationally with mindfulness, now implemented in sexual medicine centers and recommended as frontline care in international guidelines. In recognition of her contributions, she is a distinguished university scholar, has received recent awards in mentoring junior faculty, excellent public education through media, book awards, and is listed among the top 2% cited scientists by Stanford Elsevier in Scopus citations. As president and founder of eSense, a digital therapeutic platform designed to deliver evidence-based cognitive behavioral mindfulness therapies for women's sexual health, Dr. Brotto will speak about translating clinical research into an accessible digital solution and the journey of bringing that work towards a broader implementation. Next, I'm introducing Dr. Patricia Jansen, founder of Smart Parent. Dr. Jansen is a professor at UBC School of Population and Public Health, where she leads an international center of research excellence entitled Advancing the Science of Physiologic Birth. She is a perinatal epidemiologist and senior scientist at the BC Children's and Women's Hospital Research Institutes. She has been recognized with a YWCA Women of Distinction Award for research in the sciences, named one of the top 50 changemakers in public health for University of Washington, a UBC Faculty of Medicine Distinguished Achievement Awards in 2024, and recognized as one of the top 10 women leaders in digital health in Canada by Digital Health Canada. As founder of Smart Parent, Canada's first prenatal and parenting education program delivered by text messaging that provides timely evidence-based guidance throughout pregnancy and early parenthood, Dr. Jansen will speak about developing and scaling population-level digital health programs through partnership in public health systems. And next, I'm introducing Dr. Jeffrey Cundiff, co-founder of Chief Medical Officer of Amara Therapeutics. Dr. Jeff Cundiff is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology at the University of British Columbia, where he is a dedicated educator and graduate of postgraduate learners and practicing physicians. He is a research scientist at the Women's Health Research Institute with research focus on pelvic floor disorders, digital therapeutics, surgical education, preventing obstetrical trauma, and patient-reported outcomes. His contributions of 6 books and more than 200 peer-reviewed publications have over 15,000 citations. He has led multiple centered randomized clinical trials and now pursues translational research. As co-founder of Amara Therapeutics, Dr. Cundiff pursued digital therapeutics and virtual care to increase access and affordability for pelvic and bladder health disorders. Dr. Cundiff will speak about the challenges of developing digital therapeutics products and advancing these innovations towards real-world use.
Awesome. And I think we are going to pass it over to Lori to get us started.
Hey, Haley, just can you confirm you can see my slides?
It looks like they are loading. Awesome. Okay, they're good to go.
Okay, great. Thanks for the opportunity to give my pitch today. Sex. Do I have your attention? We live in a world where sex is everywhere. It's in our ads, our music, our shows, and it's loud. Yet when it comes to talking about sexual health, and in particular women's sexual health, the silence is deafening. If a man experiences sexual dysfunction, it's mainly physical. There's a pill, there's a commercial, there's a lifestyle brand, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But when a woman struggles with sexual difficulties, which, by the way, happen twice as often as in males, it's different. It's rarely physical, it's emotional and relational. It's tangled with trauma, identity, body image, childbirth, menopause, cancer, and the system barely acknowledges it. Here's the reality. Over 40% of women and gender diverse people struggle with sexual difficulties, but less than 20% of those ever get help for it. Not because they don't want it, but because the right solution simply doesn't exist. Looking a bit closer at our current options, in the US, two drugs are FDA approved. One is an injectable and one is a pill that's taken daily for at least 8 weeks. Both come with a host of side effects and moderate efficacy at best. In-person therapy, it's effective. It's the gold standard, but it's expensive and hard to access. Intimacy apps, many offer tips and education, but very few address the root cause. So that's why we developed eSense, a private, self-guided digital platform that delivers evidence-based care designed specifically for women and gender diverse people. We took the gold standards in treatment, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and mindfulness, and transformed them into two 8-module programs. No waiting rooms, no awkward conversations, just clinically grounded care, accessible anytime, anywhere, and for a fraction of the cost. And it works. Our top line results from our pivotal randomized clinical trial showed that 87% of women had an increase in sexual desire, 77% had a decrease in distress associated with sex, and 75% had stronger sexual relationships. In fact, across every outcome measure, outcomes were found to be comparable to in-person therapy, and the benefits were sustained. eSense is proven, it's scalable, and it's needed. We tested demand through a single Instagram live, and only after 1 week, nearly 1,000 individuals raised their hands. Since then, our waitlist has grown to over 1,100 individuals and 300 interested clinics, all without a single marketing dollar spent. And we're just getting started. Just last month, we launched a commercial pilot across North America to test our dual channel approach, targeting both referral clinics as well as individuals. It's early days, but we've onboarded almost 30 practitioners and have already converted 60 paid users. We offer a tiered pricing model based on access. The base price is $250 US, which is less than the cost of 2 in-person therapy sessions. This price positions eSense as both accessible and clinically credible. Our initial focus is on perimenopausal and menopausal individuals in North America, where there are 4.1 million women with sexual dysfunction severe enough to seek treatment. At a 12% conversion rate from referral to paid user, this represents a $13 million annual opportunity before additional indications, add-ons, geographic expansion, or any payer coverage factored in. It's our starting point. As for the team, we were built for this. I've had the privilege of being very involved in sexual dysfunction training, in training clinicians around the world, as well as informing international practice guidelines. My co-founder, Dr. Kyle Stevenson, is renowned for his work in CBT and trauma, and our CEO, Elaine, has over 25 years of experience in commercializing life science interventions. We've already secured over $1 million in non-dilutive grant funding, which helped pay for the development and validation of eSense, in addition to adaptations underway that will increase our patient population to include individuals with a history of sexual abuse, cancer survivors, transgender women, and others. We're also doing feasibility studies on individuals with PMOS, pelvic floor issues, and genital pain. Today, we're doing a pitch to raise $100,000 to complete our seed round, to prove our commercial validation so that we can enter our seed round 6 months later based on real data, not on assumption. This approach allows us to reduce both clinical and commercial risk before scaling. So why eSense and why now? Women's health, particularly in the context of menopause, is seeing a surge in awareness and investment, creating a significant tailwind. We're offering the first clinically validated, scalable solution for a condition that impacts a huge number of women and gender diverse people at this stage of life. And we have a team that can make it happen. eSense is clinically validated, the product is built, the demand is visible, and commercial validation is underway. Our pre-seed provides an opportunity to invest before commercial validation is priced in. We believe eSense is more than a platform. It's a movement to redefine women's sexual health and finally replace silence and stigma with science and support.
Thank you so much for that, Lori. That was a great presentation and really interesting to hear that pitch. Really like that. We'll move now to Patty. Patty is going to introduce her work in Smart Parents.
Thank you. Okay, we're good to go on slides now.
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to speak to you today about Smart Parent. As you're all aware, in maternal child health, we're concerned about the complications that we're seeing in increasing rates of cesarean birth and preterm birth and low birth weight and maternal mortality. And we know that if we can change behavior, we can address some of these complications. But the question is, how do we change behavior? We thought of delivering Smart Parent. Smart Parent is a texting program that delivers 3 text messages per week. There's evidence-based information in each of these messages, and each has a link to online sources of information so people can take as deep a dive as they want to into that particular topic area. And what happens with texting and why we thought of it is that each text arrives exactly when it's relevant during a week of pregnancy or baby's age. And our program is the only digital health solution for maternal child health in Canada that has been reviewed and approved by the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Canada. We did focus groups around the province to start, and we learned from people that they didn't want to hear about things they didn't need to know about. And so we made our streams optional for particular topic areas, and about 50% of people choose one of these topic streams for mental health issues or weight management or vaginal birth after previous cesarean or a number of other topics. We can have people join anytime during pregnancy or first year of baby's life. And it's very easy to join. Just text Smart Parent to 12323 or go to our website. So please have a visit on our website. And so we've had quite a lot of traction in BC. We've had over 28,000 people on the program in BC. And this originally started when Northern Health asked me as a perinatologist working with health authorities, perinatal epidemiologist, sorry, to find a way to deliver education to people in rural and remote areas. And so we started with Northern Health and went through the province. And I think one of the most important findings immediately was that over 60% of people said that this information is new. And this information that we provide is basic, everyone should have it. And yet this supports what we're hearing in the literature, that Canadian families just don't have the information they need, even though many of them are on apps, but most of those apps come from the US where the information isn't relevant. And often they're delivered by and developed by commercial sources rather than health professionals. So we do extensive evaluation. We ask people about behavior change. And while 75 to 99% of people stop using substances during pregnancy, between 12 and 50% said that they did so because of the information and support they received from the resources that our messages sent them to. So we've collected some third-party information from Perinatal Services BC, and preliminary information tells us that people are more often attending their prenatal care visits, that they come into hospital at a later stage in labor, that they're more often attempting a vaginal birth after previous cesarean birth, lower rates of augmentation, shorter length of postpartum stay. We haven't had enough information about neonatal outcomes to really report them yet, but in these early stages, the stillbirth rate in our smart parent group is half what it is in the control group. We also administer standardized scales of mental health outcomes. So we've found significant decreases in fear of childbirth and in depression, and we're now looking at anxiety as well. So some of the most important selling features about Smart Parent is that the information is very low barrier to receive. You don't need to go to an app, you don't need to log in, you don't need to look through pages on a website. You just look at your phone, it arrives without you doing anything, and either you need that information and you read it or you already know it. There's a great deal of literature out there showing that texting is a way of changing behavior, and that's partly because of the information arriving just when you need it, which changes thinking and motivates behavior change. The other thing that I think is the most important selling feature is that we can customize the messages to your geographical area. So if you live in Nova Scotia now, you get Smart Parent messages that drive you towards Nova Scotia resources. And that's another advantage of texting that you can't really achieve with an app or a web page. Also, looking at our analysis to date, we found that for every dollar spent, $17 is saved in terms of shortened hospital stays and reduced complications. So we work with a team, myself, we have accounting support, we have marketing and communications, and I work with the Hatch Venture program at UBC. So we have senior consultants from UBC Innovation. And often we look at the competition to see where we sit. There are no other texting programs in Canada. There's one very small one in the US. And the majority of these offerings for maternal child health in the lower left-hand corner are what we call trackers. So they tell you the size of your baby, baby name lists, hook you up with registries, advertise. And we're really aiming to be the blue ribbon program with a very high signal to noise ratio. So we don't have all those bells and whistles. We just want to give the straight, verified, evidence-based information. So we're across BC now. We are developing a contract with Alberta at the moment. We have 3 health authorities on board now in Ontario, Toronto, Peel, and Halton, and also Nova Scotia, and we're talking to PEI as well. And then next year we'll be focusing on Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Quebec, and then further north. To date, we've raised over $1 million in non-dilutive funding, and we are doing a pan-Canadian randomized control trial. We'll finish recruitment in October. And our customers are health authorities. So when we pitch, we are pitching to health authorities. And our income now from health authorities is about $14,000 a month. And so you can see the growth in revenue here on the right-hand side. And we're just launching a B2C model in which individual people will be able to enroll in addition to health authorities, so that if it's not offered in your province, you have another way of getting it. And then I will end here with a comment from one of our users. My email, if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. And I will stop there. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Patty. That was great. I've really enjoyed listening to these pitches. I think I can maybe speak for everyone, but it's been really interesting to learn about how evidence is really translated into the commercialization pathway. And so thanks for sharing that. We'll pass it on now to Jeff Cundiff, and we'll be introducing about Amara Therapeutics.
Great, thank you. And I'm really pleased to be on this panel. and to have the opportunity to tell you about Amara Therapeutics, where we are dedicated to improving the care pathway for women with urinary incontinence. We've heard two great pitches, which are really products directed towards the Canadian market. Amara is started as an Irish company, and we are now have our primary base in the United States, which is we have CE marking for our digital therapeutic, and we're pursuing FDA clearance with our intent to start our commercialization in the US. So I just mentioned that because it's a slightly different market than Canada. So let me start by acknowledging that urinary incontinence is a very common problem for women. 2 out of 3 women have incontinence. We don't really realize that because social stigma makes it a topic that is really not brought up very often. Um, that's changing as women become uh, really better consumers and more interested in pursuing care. But a lot of women with urinary incontinence don't really recognize the impact that it has on quality of life. It is a significant social limitation, preventing people from exercising, traveling, and even just being with other people. It affects work performance, and it also has significant associations with mental health, specifically anxiety, depression, and poor sleep. So because of that, really, it's the largest untapped market in women's healthcare right now. And a big issue with urinary incontinence is really that the care path, which is for 78 million women in the US, is a broken care model. And that starts with we talked about some of the social barriers. There are also financial barriers. It's quite expensive to get into care, and a lot of patients who go to their primary care provider are actually discouraged by their prolonging myths about urinary incontinence being normal consequences of childbirth or normal part of aging. And so that discourages them and they don't seek care. Those who do seek care face very long waits. The wait times for urogynecologists are 6 months for initial evaluation and 3 months for follow-up. And this is very long wait times for the US. When they do get into care, unfortunately, they have poor access to treatment. All guidelines recommend beginning treatment with conservative therapy, which includes pelvic muscle exercises and behavioral therapy. And these have actually been shown to be more effective than second line treatment, which is medications. And yet, because it takes in-person um, meetings and physicians don't really have time to provide that degree of care, so it usually falls on pelvic floor physiotherapists that are limited availability and costs extra money and extra time for the patients to seek that care. So most patients start with medications, and because they're such bad medications, they cause a lot of side effects, including dementia. Most patients fall off of them and just stop seeking care. And what that results in is they don't actually get to procedural care, which includes Botox injections, neurostimulation, neuromodulation, bulking agents, and surgery. And they simply don't get to those because of discouragement. So we know, for example, that only 50% of patients who have incontinence seek care, and of those, only 30% actually are provided with conservative treatment. Of those who are put on medications, which are the majority, only 11% continue them after 3 months, and only 3.5% of them actually get to procedural care. And it's worth noting that in the American healthcare system, that's where the hospitals actually pay for this program is through the procedural care, which is where the profits are. So health systems are very much looking for solutions to better manage these patients. At Amera, we've come up with two technologies to really address all of these problems in the care pathway, and it begins with virtual clinics. We've opened a virtual clinic for urinary incontinence that can provide next day appointments. The second is our digital therapeutic, which is an app-based platform for delivering behavioral therapy and pelvic muscle exercises. It also has a diagnostic algorithm in it, and that really increases the efficiency of our care. And it's very good at engaging patients and keeping them in the care pathway. And importantly, we are partnering with health systems so that we also have people who can provide the procedural care for those patients who aren't adequately managed by conservative treatments. So it really begins with accessible point of care that is covered by insurance. This is an expectation in the US. And so we have the first specialty virtual clinic testing women with urinary or treating them with urinary incontinence. And we have no wait times. We have next day appointments with licensed clinicians who are. Okay, so our digital therapeutic has an 8-week program. It's intended for daily interactions by the patients. There's 30 hours um, physical therapy. We've also added cognitive behavioral therapy because we know that most women who have incontinence have a big impact from the behavioral issues around anxiety. And so we've addressed that. And um, the patients do basically a informational video followed by an activity where they actually engage in the treatment. And that includes behavioral experiments to really help them develop confidence. Um, it also includes a patented AI-based diagnostic algorithm to sort patients into 16 phenotypes. This allows us to collect objective data on their progress and provide it back to the patient as well as to their clinician. And it will also in the future allow us to personalize care to the specific patient's needs. Resolve, this is our pilot study that showed that it was effective at improving symptoms of incontinence. And this is our recent phase 2 study, which was done in Ireland. It was a prospective one-arm study. Showed it was really focused on usability and showed excellent usability. I'm showing the results for severity. This is the global impression of severity. Basically, 74% of patients had moderate or severe severity, and none had severe severity at the end of the program, and most had improved to mild or normal. And so we were really happy with these results. We do have a phase 3 study, which will be a regulatory study for your FDA clearance. It is the largest women's health study currently underway. It's a 600 patient, 2-arm study comparing Resolve to the standard of care. And we're 90% recruited and uh, plan to finish recruitment in August, and we'll get our data for FDA submission in October. We're also very pleased to have these. These are really the top academic centers in the United States for urogynecology, and we anticipate that they will probably be some of our initial health system partners. So the way that this works is, the health systems have a lot of patients who aren't being treated for their incontinence. We can recruit patients ourselves through direct patient marketing, but by partnering with health systems, we can open up their patients to convenience of at-home virtual visits, at-home conservative treatment. We can add on to that virtual medications, prescription, pessaries, and continence devices. And if they're treated, then we continue to follow them. But if they're not adequately treated, we then hand them off to our health system partners. They are educated. They've done all of the prerequisites for insurance covered surgical care, and and they can get straight in to see those patients. So really, this is a win-win for everybody, especially the patients, but it's a win for Amara and also for the health systems, which I think will really help support our movement forward. So at this point, we have opened the virtual clinic. We have our first health system partner. This is our leadership team. We're a very small team. We've done a lot over the last 5 years. Um, and we're currently in our seed raise. Most of our funding to date has been through government innovation grants and some angel investments. But right now we're seeking a $6 million investment for really to create a runway for scaling this product to 20 states within the US. And from there, we hope to expand it not just in the US, but also in Europe and in Canada. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much. That was really great, Jeff. Nice to hear about all the work that's been gone and how integrated it is. Apologies earlier for the Zoom bomber as well. We've dealt with it, so there won't be any other issues. Um, we're going to move now to the question and answer session. So I just want to remind everyone that we will be taking questions from Slido. We do have some pre-prepared questions, so during the course of those, feel free to engage with the Slido link and just ask any questions, and you can vote on any questions you really want to hear from others that have been posted. We're going to start now with I'm going to ask Patty first. But everyone feel free to jump in if you have anything that you wanted to add. So Patty, looking back at Smart Parent, what are some key factors or signals that indicated that your digital health tool was ready to move beyond the research and into commercialization? Just looking at like the earlier stages and in your process and your experience, and wanted to kind of learn more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, Fraser Health Unit had asked us if they could have their own set of messages. And we began to think about how adaptable could we be, and could we adapt various aspects of our programs to meet the needs of individual customers. And so that's what started us thinking about changes in the actual tool. But the other signal was just the adoption and enthusiasm we saw in health authorities, and people were reaching out to us. So our first out of province customer was Nova Scotia, and they reached out to us, followed by Newfoundland and Ontario. And I just wanted to say that if you're going to be successful, you have to have identified a burning problem that you have the solution to. The worst thing you can do as an entrepreneur is develop something that you think is important and then go out and peddle it to prospective customers. You have to have your customer base ready and waiting for you when you start, because you're solving an identified problem. And that's where we started.
That's really great. Yeah, that's very insightful. I like hearing that. Um, I was also wondering, I guess, were there maybe that we can move on to Lori. So I think I'm just really wanting to know, like, is there something in the earlier stages of development of the process? Are there any things that would really speak to how the commercialization process might be improved, or if there's anything in the earlier stages of commercialization that you wish you had done um, earlier on that might have helped make the commercialization process a little bit smoother? Is there anything like that, or?
Yeah, lots. Lots, Eric. I mean, I think we made pretty much every mistake in the book. I mean, my first recommendation again came afterwards is really spend some time thinking about the problem you're trying to solve, the people you're trying to serve. Um, researchers, I'll speak for myself, we often begin with an exciting technology, but commercialization succeeds when you're trying to solve a problem that matters. matters to people, matters to the healthcare system. And so those early conversations with end users, whether it's the people using your tool or the health systems, can really help shape that innovation early, just to make sure you're really addressing that gap. I think
Mhm.
another thing that I wish that we had done earlier on was thinking about building our multidisciplinary team early.
Mhm.
So indeed, we had clinicians and researchers and some of the product developers, but really wish we had thought more carefully about people with design expertise, business strategy, implementation, regulatory knowledge, legal advice, and bringing those people together. Really from these different perspectives as early on as possible. And that's a challenge because we didn't know when we started doing research on eSense 10 years ago that we would be going down a commercial pathway. It was mostly a research interest that we had. I think the other thing is having some humble pie around the need for iteration. Commercialization is really different from the traditional research process, and you're going to receive feedback that challenges your assumptions. And some of the most important improvements come from adapting to what users tell you rather than what you really envisioned as was going to be the pathway. And then the last thing, like I said, I have lots of lessons learned, but the other thing, and maybe this is useful for people who are new to commercialization in our space, is there's great support around us. So take advantage of the innovation ecosystem that is around us. The tech transfer office, accelerator programs, mentors, industry partners. I personally did Innovation UBC's Venture Founder Program and Hatch and Femtech and New Ventures BC, and meet regularly with entrepreneurs in residence that continue to give feedback on pitches and help us think about that gap that we're trying to solve with eSense. So yeah, there's a lot to learn, but you don't need to do it on your own. And like I said, there's some really great resources around us.
Yeah, that's always a good reminder about using the resources that we have.
Eric,
Um,
can I just
yeah.
underline Lori's comments that I think if you're looking for an ecosystem that really has proven to work for innovation, it's a Stanford Biodesign program, which is incidentally how that program is also present at the University of Galway in Ireland, and was what our where we started. That
Mhm.
program from the very start gets a group of experts together who have different skill sets, including clinicians, including engineers, including commercial strengths, and importantly, patients. And that really helps you to focus on exactly what Patty said too, is finding a product that actually meets a real need. And we don't do that in research. We don't have that whole contingent around us. And it is a different way of looking at a problem.
Mhm. Excellent. Yeah, that's great. Um, Maybe just wanting to know more about the digital therapeutics angle as well. So for Amara Therapeutics, so for those working in the digital therapeutic space, is there any, in your experience, is there any unique challenges or considerations that come up in developing or validating or scaling or the interventions compared to other types of digital health tools, or if you have any insights about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question because um, some of the audience may not understand the difference between a digital product and a digital therapeutic, which a
Mhm.
therapeutic is an actual treatment that has to be regulated and is under regulatory control. So in Canada, that's Health Canada. In the US, it's FDA. In Europe, it's CE. And in order to get, there are actually quite a lot of barriers to getting, uh, clearance through any of those bodies. Um, I think the first consideration is, basically it's going to be considered a medical device. And within the FDA's framework, it's actually software as a medical device, which provides even more regulatory hurdles than just a medical device. So you have to start from the beginning and determine whether if you're prescribing it, then it's going to be if you're marketing it as a treatment, then it has to go through this framework, and that means that you have to, when you're designing it, you have to make sure that you have a quality management system in place. You have to have software like life cycle controls, and you have to make sure that the product development is all compliant with ISO 13485. So this includes software development lifecycle requirements and design and verification and validation. And also, you have to have cybersecurity and privacy for data handling that are compliant with HIPAA. Um, at that point, once you've developed your product with all of those uh, issues in mind, then you have to actually get it approved. And um, so you have to decide, is it going to go through as a predicate? Is there a predicate device? Or for most digital therapeutics, there's not. So you have to go through as a de novo classification, which means that there's much more stringent implications for clinical evidence. Um, and you're going to have to do a prospective RCT, and you really need to get that approved by the FDA before you start designing it, or at least before you finish designing it. Um, and after you do the clinical evidence, you also have to do human factors and usability testing. And then even after that, even after you get clearance, you still have post-market obligations. So it does add a lot of effort to the lift when you are going to become a digital therapeutic. But it also, I think, it means that you can charge more for it, number one. And number two, it means that to some extent, intellectual property doesn't really, it's not very useful in this ecosystem except as a way to impress investors. It doesn't slow down your competitors, but the regulatory pathway does slow down competitors. And so you have to decide whether or not it's worth your effort. It's a lot of effort to follow that route, but there are benefits.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing. I think I'm definitely new to the digital therapeutic space, so it's really interesting to hear about the pathway and just things to consider and all of that. We've got tons of questions coming in on Slido. So I'm gonna get us started over there. And again, for everyone who's here, if you want to upvote questions in Slido or ask in Slido, please do so, and we will incorporate those. So one question that we have, and I'll pose this to all of you. How can lessons learned here reach people without access to these technologies, such as internets, apps, phones, and bridge digital divides? So more generally, is there a way to bridge the digital divide? I know that that's something that we talk about a lot, and it's definitely a challenge. So curious to hear your thoughts on that. Who wants to start us off? I know it's a tricky one.
Yeah, I mean it is tricky because in part for us, and I would argue probably also for Patty and Jeff, is that the digital tool is intended to close a gap. Yet in doing that, are we creating other gaps, right, that require people to have access to a device of some sort in order to access these technologies? I think is that what the question was asking, Haley? Is how do the tools that we're developing better access the populations who may not have that particular kind of access?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's, yeah, as you said, acknowledging that closing one gap may open others. And yeah. Patty, Jeff, do you
I
have any
think,
thoughts?
yeah, I think first of all, it speaks to the fact that you have to do usability studies and actually understand if it is meeting the population you've intended. Um, I think being as old as I am and recognizing how the people my age that I know are actually pretty good at apps and at their smartphone these days. I am really we have noted that there has been very small limitations in people who can actually uh, get to digital treatments. It's a little bit more for virtual clinics, actually, and it has more to do with the process of actually getting um, signed up and approved by insurance and all that. That is actually much more of a barrier than getting somebody on an app.
Would I just add, Haley, too, that in commercialization, it's all about the customer. And so trying to make it easy, and in our case, thinking about product development, because we do know there are areas in the interior and Nordic where they do not have internet access or cellular access. And so we developed an offline app that you download once and you can get the information you want just in that format. So it's having someone with expertise in product development in your space, on your team, gathering continuous feedback from people, as Jeff said, and being adaptable going forward so that you make sure that people truly feel that it's accessible. And one of the other big issues is language and moving into a space where you can offer it in different languages.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's clear that all of your work has also been involved with really getting to know the populations that you're working with. And so, yeah. Another question that we have here, a bit of a different take. From your collective experiences, what system level changes are needed to truly facilitate digital innovation within a Canadian context? I know yeah, definitely a big question. I know it's something we talk about a lot, the difference between innovating in Canada versus the US. And Jeff, you kind of mentioned that a little bit. Curious if anyone has thoughts there.
I would just add that pregnant people are a hard to reach population because you don't know who they are, but they all do have a provider. And so one of the challenges is how to reach and educate providers because for Smart Parent, the single most important gateway to people enrolling is hearing about it from their provider. So how do we reach primary care providers? How do we educate them? How do we give them easy to use tools that allow them to inform their patients? And I'm sure that that also holds for the work that Jeff and Lori are doing as well.
Yeah, I think it actually really prefaces a comment I have about, why do we have two products, a digital therapeutic and a virtual clinic? Well, we developed the digital therapeutic. It took, 5 years to really get that to the point where we're this close to having the evidence to get regulatory clearance. That process of getting the FDA approval is probably going to take another year. And so our runway, that's a long runway. And so we opened the virtual clinic, and even after we get clearance, we then, if we're going to market it as a prescribed, like a drug, we have to have a large sales force to really do that, to get doctors aware of it. By creating a virtual clinic, we get immediate access to patients, and we get to actually prove that it works in real life with doctors who are our partners in health systems. And so we really took that direction, recognizing it would improve the problems with the patient pathway, but also as a way to bring in some revenue while we're trying to get the digital treatment in the hands of patients. And I think it's a model that hasn't really been used, but would would work in Canada just as well.
Yeah, I think the only thing I will add is from the researcher's perspective in terms of, I think the question, Haley, was something around kind of what systems do we need in place to support this is, I've had conversations with many of my colleagues about the commercial potential of their work. And I think for many of us, I'll speak just for myself, it's not something I had thought about at any point. And now I sort of retrospectively look back at a lot of our work, and now that I'm much more in that landscape, I can see the commercial potential of so much of our work and my colleagues around me. So that's one thing, is do we have kind of learning opportunities and supports in place to kind of nurture researchers to think about that? The other thing is funding. I mean, whether it's, grant funding that specifically supports commercialization activity. I was really lucky to secure one of the Michael Smith Health Research BC Innovation to Commercialization grant. So I had funding specifically to bring on a CEO and do discovery groups and, hire a lawyer. And these kinds of funds are really hard to find. Most people bootstrap on their own, which means you take your own savings and pour it into the company to do this. And so I think there's a real need for more dedicated research fundings to support commercialization activities in Canada.
I agree with that so much, Lori. I mean, we got 2.3 billion or million euros from Ireland to build our product, and that kind of money just isn't available in Canada.
Yeah, definitely. Along with kind of the how do you get started conversation, someone's asking, can you comment on how to start the commercialization process if you don't have IP or patents, but must rely on trade secrets or copyright to protect your work?
Yeah, I can tell you what not to do. And that is don't take screenshots of your tool and include them in your manuscripts that you're publishing, because you've just turned over the copyright of those images now to the publisher of the journal. So that was a mistake I made. We had to redo some of our illustrations. The other thing is, I think it's quite normative in this space of commercialization to have people sign NDAs. So anytime you're having a conversation, including with trainees or others on your team, you have them sign an NDA before you talk about the product, and you show them, you have them work through it. That I think is really, really important. eSense is not patentable. So we are only relying on copyright and trademark. The other thing is I did an IP course where I learned very quickly that there was a lot of jargon that was completely over my head. So I took an entire course on IP policy and law. We also hired an IP lawyer on the team to help us think through to ensure that we weren't copying other products, not just in Canada and the US, but elsewhere in the world. So again, I think there's lots of lessons to be learned. I'm sure Patty and Jeff have lots to add as well.
My comment is exactly the same as Lori's. We're in the same situation. There's all kinds of digital education programs that aren't patentable, but there's also a whole wealth of information out to support you. And we did the same thing. I took the course, we had the legal consult, and there's help, step-by-step help available.
Yeah, I think you both acknowledge that you have to understand the lingo, but you also need advice from professionals. And an IP attorney is just one of the people. You need a regulatory consultant, and you need a quality management consultant, and you need a cybersecurity consultant. There's a lot of expertise that you need to really commercialize something.
Sorry. Yeah, from hearing all of you, it really sounds like having lots of people on your team, and also just being willing to step into areas where you maybe weren't comfortable before and learn new things has been really important to your success. I'm curious to hear from each of you. I think this will probably be our last question. Maybe we'll have time for a couple more. A big challenge that you faced that maybe you had a moment where you're like, wow, I really don't know how to get around this. And what kind of resources did you turn to? Were there like different people that you talked to, different groups that you collaborated with, or really kind of what resources or strategies did you use to overcome those really challenging moments in the process?
My big challenge is that I was continually told that I did not have a viable company because my profit margins were too low. And when you deal with health authorities that don't have a discretionary budget, a budget for innovation, their programs can be slashed at any time. All I can say is rely on who you are. You are a clinician. You understand the people you serve. You understand the problem. Believe in yourself no matter what you're told, because if you're not doing something different, you don't have a viable company, but you are doing something different, and therefore people are not experts in what you do. You are the expert. And so for us going forward, we are taking on customers at a rate we can hardly keep up with. And so I don't need to be told I don't have a viable company. I'm not making a lot of money for each transaction, but I'm still here and we're building. So have faith in yourself and where you come from as a researcher and a clinician and your knowledge and understanding of the problem.
Yeah, I would say that inherent in this particular group is the recognition that this audience is mainly researchers who are interested in pursuing commercialization. And that says right there that these are new skills. And so you have to really enjoy learning new skills. And for me, that has been made much easier by having two excellent co-founders with very different backgrounds than me and each other. And we bring different things to the party. And we work together, and when we hit rough snags, somebody usually has some way out of it. And that's how we have managed to stay afloat.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've had many, many moments of just jumping ship and saying, I give up. This is not going to work. I mean, whether it's, the grant funding has run out or signing a tech transfer agreement with UILO. When you talk about sort of who owns the intellectual property of all the work that you have done, to having, a tech developer that built a great research tool, but when it came to scale up, it had all sorts of problems that was jeopardizing security, and confidentiality. So stick with it. I think scientists are in an ideal place to do commercialization. We are dedicated to the science. We're not in it to make the money, and we are very, very.
Did Lori freeze or did I freeze?
I think she froze.
Lori froze. Oh no. Okay. Well, it is about time. Oh, Lori, you froze. Do you want to wrap up your thought there? You're back now.
Oh yeah, no. So I just said stick with it. That was it.
Awesome. Okay, well, it is about time to wrap up. Thank you so much to our three fantastic speakers today. It was really, really valuable to see your pitches, hear a little bit about how you're framing that evidence and really the process that you've gone through. And really excited to see how all of you continue to move forward with this. And to those of you who attended, thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned for more information on our next seminar series in August. So thank you all so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take
Take
care.
care.